What's up, everybody? Noble Comics here with another story review here on Reedsy. I'm going to be looking at a story called Cooper's Door by Nicholas Thomas here, submitted on Reedsy. And this was in response to a prompt. The prompt was start your story with someone walking into a gas station, and this was a contest submitter, though it did not win, but I thought we may as well look it over anyway just because it kind of sounded interesting. Again, I have not read this full story, so my responses here and reactions will be live. And again, of course, no hate towards anybody here as I'm reviewing their story. Cooper walked into the gas station, whose air conditioning was a pleasant reprieve from the scalding Arizona sun. He stood on a placemat on the inside of the glass door. He took this moment to simply lean his head back and take in the cool air as he closed his eyes. A smile crossed his lips, and he inhaled deeply before letting out a contented sigh. He leveled his head and looked around the small convenience store. He needed road trip snacks as he was not even a third of his way done with his cross-country drive, and he just needed to see this through before summer break was over. The counter appeared unmanned. Not a single other person was in the store there with him. "Hello?" he casually said out loud. Silence. "Hello?" Louder now. Still nothing. It was probably just his imagination, given the volume of everything else, but he could have sworn his voice was echoing faintly through the person-free store. Why is that weird? If it's an empty store, it might echo if you yell, okay? He sighed and smiled to himself. "Oh well," he said blithely to no one. "I'll just leave some cash on the counter when I'm ready to check out of here." No in parentheses, so he's just saying the rest of this story. He looked back to see what snacks he could find for the road. Moving past the weird off-brand bags of chips that conveniently lacked expiration dates, Cooper grabbed a large bag of teriyaki beef jerky and a bag of Lifesaver gummy rings. He then moved over to the cold drink section to select a sweet assortment of beverages for the ride. At least one of them needed to be a plastic bottle with a twist-on cap for emergencies so that he could piss in it. As Cooper opened the suction glass door of the refrigerated section, he heard the slightest faint sound, something of a sound. He couldn't be sure if he actually heard something, as it happened just as the door made its popping sound as it opened, so he stilled his hand, keeping the door open in place where he stood motionless trying to hear the strange sound again. Cooper was practically perching his ears as he listened intently to the background. After approximately 30 seconds had passed, he decided it was nothing. He towards the cooled shelf to grab a plastic bottle of Coca-Cola with a twisting lid. I'm guessing like he moved towards. As his fingers wrapped around the rim of the bottle, condensation instantly formed around his fingers. He heard it again, this time more clearly. Condensation formed around my fingers. I don't think that's quite what that's supposed to say. It was a loud banging sound, as if something was being kicked around in another room. He stood up abruptly, the handle to the glass door being squeezed tightly in anticipation in his hand. Thanks for clarifying it's in his hand. As Cooper's back stood erect as a Roman pillar, interesting, his wide eyes darted to and fro around the gas station's convenience store. You could just say around the convenience store. This is kind of weirdly written, but I'll go back over it in full here in a bit. Slowly closing the cool drinks door, he walked towards the counter which stood in front of the revolving door leading to the store's back room. As Cooper grew closer to the door, he could hear the banging sound again from behind the door. A lot of door going on here. You don't need that other one. He couldn't rationalize why, but he felt a powerful sense of unease as he approached it. He couldn't rationalize why. Maybe because it's a weird banging sound behind a door in an empty gas station. That'd be my guess. He felt a powerful sense of unease as he approached. It's most likely just an employee moving stock around, he thought to himself, but the feeling that something was terribly wrong did not leave him. Cooper reached his hand up to push the door. Why? And saw that he was trembling violently. In fact, not only was his whole body egregiously shaking, but he was perspiring profusely. "What the fuck am I doing?" he practically yelled in his head. "I should just take my stuff, leave the money on the counter, and go. Not snoop around in this freaky shit." Try as he might, however, his body would comply with the demands of his conscience. His body would comply with the demands of his conscience. Isn't his conscience telling him to get out of here? He placed his hands against the revolving door and remembered to breathe as he exhaled the intake of air he was holding on to. He pushed it open. It's a revolving door? Like hotels have, like a revolving door? I don't think that's what he means. What he saw made him want to scream so violently that it would rip his vocal cords apart, but he couldn't scream. He could only stare in blank shock as his mind tried to register what his retinas were capturing. Yeah, weirdly written, but okay. There, pinned against a shelf of supplies, was the gas station employee on shift today. What was pinning the young man was something far more difficult to register. In the area of what could be pointed out as the torso, it resembled that of a woman wearing a stained and molded old white dress. But what came out from underneath the skirt of the dress were 6 large carapaces of black mandibles, which jutted upwards and downwards across their multiple joints until they came to their ends in different directions of the concrete floor. Protruding out of the once puffy sleeves of this dress were human-like shoulders that stretched out into long, hairy black pincers, which were clamped around the waist and neck of the gas station employee. Lastly, there was the greasy curtain of onyx hair that stood up like a carpet wall above the neckline of the dress, which obscured the vision of this nightmarish creature's face. Okay. Though Cooper could not see this thing's face, he could tell it was biting into the upper abdomen of the gas station employee as his blood pooled thickly beneath the spindly legs of the creature. Cooper's synapses were on fire as they scrambled to comprehend the scene before him, a scene in which no human brain was ever meant to bear witness. As madness swept over Cooper's psyche like a dark rug, he managed to find a piece of himself that still produced rational thought. "Get out of here," it told him, as quick and quietly as you can. Every bit of him was trembling as he slid on sneakered foot behind him. The monster did not stir. His other foot was sliding back now, closer, one more step. He was back on the other side of the revolving door's threshold now. He let it fall back into position as he moved his hand painfully slow backwards, every molecule of his flesh vibrating. The door had closed with barely a sound. He stood there as perfectly still as he could for several seconds. When he felt he had waited long enough to see whether or not he had disturbed the nightmarish thing, using the same descriptor here, but that's okay, during its meal, he rotated on his left heel and made to sprint at the exit. As he ran, he stumbled over his own feet and crashed into a display of off-brand desserts that looked too much like Hostess for the company to not get sued. The display crashed onto the floor. Awesome. And Cooper heard the most horrific sound come from the back room. It was how one could imagine a cat might sound if forced into a blender. What a weird thing to say. And the sound itself had an oscillation to it that made his ears throb. He did not think he would ever be able to properly sleep again after hearing such a sound. That's what he was thinking of. I'd probably be thinking, get out of here, not, man, I wonder if I'm going to be able to sleep tonight. That's okay. He darted out of the front door of the convenience store. Thanks for specifying. Not daring to look back, for if he did, he knew that if he saw this creature's face, he would have died of shock. Then the thing would feast on his corpse. Cooper got in his car and turned on the ignition, and his tires squealed as they turned, I think we meant to say, as turned out of the space by the pump and away from the gas station. The gas station was getting smaller in the rearview mirror. Again, you don't need that back to back. That's okay. And Cooper saw the outline of the monster break through the glass doors and turn in his direction. Then it started to run. Cooper drove as fast as his car would go down the highway. 2 hours had gone by since he left the gas station. He did not see a single vehicle in either direction. For that matter, he didn't see anything to hint there was anyone else in the world besides him. The dead gas station employee and the monster. There were street signs. Besides him, there were no street signs, no buildings on the side of the road. All he saw was a stretch of empty asphalt. Whenever he stopped the car to take a breather, to try to come to terms with what he saw, he would look in the rearview mirror and see the silhouette of the monster coming into view. Really? He would get off the shoulder of the road and speed away. Again and again, he would speed away, but the mirror showed the monster was never far behind. It's a fast-ass monster. His tank was now close to empty, still not a sign of human life around. No other vehicles on the road, and nowhere to run for shelter. His car came to a rolling stop as the gas station gauge indicated he was empty. Fuck, 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 fuck. Cooper yelled as he slammed slammed his fist against the steering wheel. Took a deep breath and looked in the rearview mirror. Nothing. He exhaled and leaned back against the headrest as he tried to reassert himself. He had finally shaken the thing off, and now it was time to sit and rest while he calmed himself down. He felt himself dozing off. He tried to fight it off at first, but he was just so very, very tired now. As he circled nearer to the escape of sleep that he most desperately needed, he heard a sharp hissing sound just on the other side of the driver's door. Okay, so this is an okay story, I guess. People seem to like it. People were commenting on it, giving him some praise and everything like that. And I guess overall, it's not bad. We had some grammatical mistakes and some spelling mistakes here and there, but, this guy's not like a published author. He doesn't have an editor or anything like that. He's just writing it himself. So you can expect to have some of that stuff every now and again. As far as the actual story goes itself, right, we have Cooper goes to this gas station. He's on a road trip and goes into the gas station. There's nobody there, and there's a monster in there. And he leaves, and the monster has been chasing him this whole time. It's pretty cliched, and I think that kind of hurts it. There's ways to do cliche very well, where you're playing into the fact that your audience knows something already, right? Like, especially for short stories, cliches can be very handy because you don't have time to flesh out an entirely new and unique storyline and world. But I think this time, it doesn't quite work. And also, our character of Cooper here, I feel like doesn't really behave like an actual person. It feels like this story was written and like the person knew the story he wanted to write, and that's how the story was going to turn out, whether or not it necessarily made sense. Because, like, first thing we do, this guy enters into the gas station, and we get no description of the gas station itself, which I think probably would have helped. Like, is this thing worn down? Does it look shady? Does it look like a normal gas station? I'm assuming there's no other people there, but, like, where are you? Now we are like we're in Arizona, but it's not like Arizona's empty, like they kind of want us to believe here. But I think knowing sort of what we're walking into would help. But we go in, and he does this weird, like, Disney Channel acting thing, where he walks in and he stands there and, puts his hands on his hips, and he leans back, and he's like, cool air. Which is just kind of weird. Like, people don't do that. We don't just, like, step inside, you know what I mean? Right in front of the doors when we step inside. And also, it's like you've been in a car this whole time. So are you really that hot that it's, like, insane for you to step out of an air-conditioned car into an air-conditioned building? I don't know. That opening line kind of threw me off. And so we know he's going around the store. He needs some snacks. He's going on this road trip for summer break. And we're assuming this guy's younger. We don't really get any description of who he is, which kind of hurts it, but we don't need a ton. We just need to know that he's like a normal, rational person, which we don't really get, honestly, but we just need to know he's normal. Maybe he's a little stupid. You could have put a line in here, which I think would help throughout the end of the story, where it's like, I just wanted to get this road trip done. I'm kind of dumb. Maybe he's a college kid. He's like, I did not prepare properly, and so now I'm in a little bit of trouble. So we know that, he is not prepared for the trip he's taken, which I think, again, I'll touch on how that affects us later on. But he's looking around. There's nobody else in the store. But then we have this line here, which, again, is like weird Disney Channel acting. He sighs and smiles. Oh, well, he says out loud in an empty store. Oh, well, I'll just leave some cash on the counter when I'm ready to check out. Then we don't ever get an end to that sentence, but that's okay. That's just a weird thing. Again, that's not how a normal person acts. So I'm guessing the person who wrote this is probably pretty young. So don't be too harsh. But they're probably pretty young. They just probably don't have a lot of real life experience, right? Where they see how normal people act. People don't do that. Like, if you want to think to myself, like, you could just have like a little, like, yeah, I'll just pay for it and then leave. You don't need to make like I don't know, a weird scene about it. And then we have this nice, funny little comment here about how he's going to pee in the bottle. Which again, I don't know. Like, I get that that's kind of funny, where it's like, oh, I need to have a drink that I can pee in. It's like, why? Like, what's the big deal? Why can't you just pull over? I don't know. And then the actual plot kind of starts here, where we hear a sound. We hear a weird sound coming from the back. And we're like, man, what is that? That's weird. Something over there. It sounds like something's being knocked around. And so you imagine yourself in this situation. You're on a long drive. It's hot outside. You come inside. There's nobody here. Everything seems a little weird. And you hear some weird sounds from the back. I feel like in the real world, I probably would think like, oh, the employees are just back there. And they just don't know that I'm up here. And so I'd probably just hang out for a little bit. And if nobody showed up, yeah, I'd probably just put my cash down and leave. But this person doesn't do that. They are shocked by it immediately, right here, right? We hear this sound. And Cooper, the character, is immediately shocked, like a Roman pillar. We have a lot of weird like analogies and metaphors in here, which I think is just probably just like early writer, young writer. But he's immediately shocked, which is weird. Because it's like, I don't know if the plot facilitates him being that shocked, other than the writer himself knowing that something scary is going to happen. Like, is that how a person would respond? Because, like, as far as I can tell, it's daytime, right? Because it's still hot outside. It's nothing weird necessarily. It's like there's sounds in a store, okay? But he's immediately shocked. He is going to approach this door, right? Which he's calling a revolving door. I don't know why he's calling it a revolving door, leading to the back room of the store. And then we get to the part that I think kind of throws me out of the story more than the actual monster. And that's the fact that he goes back there and he opens the door. Not to mention this line here, where he's obviously thinking, I shouldn't do this. But he's saying his body complies with his conscience. And I don't get what that means. Because your mind is obviously telling you from the line we just saw that you should leave. Now, I think what the writer is saying is like, Cooper, the character, thinks that something bad is happening back there and somebody needs help. That's what I grab from that, but again, that's not stated anywhere in the story. Like, as far as he knows, as Cooper in the story has thought, oh, it's probably just an employee moving stuff around. So what is it in your conscience that would tell you that you need to go back there? Because it just, like he said, just sounds like stuff's being kicked around. So who cares? It's just banging sounds. What's that got to do with you? How does that impact your conscience at all? Just leave. There's no reason for him to go into the room. And yet he does. And he sees this big, scary, like, spider woman monster type thing. Which is not a terrible design, I guess, as far as monsters go. But we have this monster that's eating the employee. And I feel like this is convenient timing that we get here. Again, the middle of the day at a random gas station, where the monster is like in the process of eating this person. And also, I know that like horror stories don't need to answer all of the questions, but one question that I have is like what is this monster and where did it come from? And I don't mean like what dimension or what planet, but I mean like, did it come in through the front door? Did it come in through a back door? Because we don't have any indication that anything's wrong in the store. If we wanted to build onto this whole conscience needs to do that, then we should have established like he goes into this place and it's kind of wrecked, or stuff's knocked over, something like that, and then he hears the banging, and then he puts two and two together that maybe something's not right. But if the place is just in good condition, maybe this person like transformed into a spider. That's kind of what it seems like. But again, there's no indication that anything right happened in the actual store, which would lead him to go poking around. Then he sees the monster, he goes to leave, and then again, it's like very conveniently he trips and knocks stuff over, so now the monster's after him. I don't know why knocking over some random crap in the store that got the monster's attention, but entering the gas station, opening the uh, refrigerator, looking for a drink, closing the refrigerator, which all makes sound. And when you walk into a gas station, there's usually like a chime that goes off. None of that got the monster's attention. But whenever he like does the most cliche thing ever, like all he's got to do is walk out of the place, and he trips and knocks something over, and the monster's after him. Then it's after him, right? And for some reason, it like is more intent on killing something new than eating the thing it's already killed, which doesn't make much sense to me because this thing pursues him, we can assume, for like hundreds of miles. So because he peels out of there in his car, and we're assuming he just filled up. He peels out of there in his car, drives down an empty road. There's nobody there to stop him, no cops to pull him over. He's flying down the road. Then every time he like pulls over to, I don't know, just pulls over for some other reason to check behind him, the monster's always like pretty close. So this monster is running at like 80 miles an hour, somehow, and again is willing to chase this person who regularly goes out of their view because right he has to wait a little bit, and then the monster would kind of show up again after he has slowed down or whatever. So this monster's logic is, I already have prey that I've killed, and I'm started to eat. I heard another random sound, and this I don't ever see this person, but I heard a random sound that has startled me, and I see this vehicle going away because he's already driving away by the time the monster breaks out of the. And despite this thing driving away faster than me, going out of my sight, I'm still going to run after it and pursue it for like hundreds of miles instead of just turning back around and eating the meal I was already eating. That doesn't make much sense to me. Then he goes to where his car runs out of gas. It rolls to a stop, and he starts freaking out, right? That, oh no, oh no, oh no. But then he doesn't see the monster in his mirror, and he's just like, okay, I guess I'll take a nap. And then it turns out that the monster's there. It caught up to him. Which, again, totally not how a normal person would behave in this situation. And again, I think it's also very convenient that he never sees another person. I guess he never comes across another town. Just he's in the Twilight Zone. Nothing's around for these hundreds of miles that he's driving. That's a little... I feel like that's kind of like a cop-out writing. That's you shouldn't do that. That doesn't make any sense. I think that this story could have been a lot better. And I think if you're going to retell it, I think you need to more firmly establish who your character is, what's their motivation, what's their little arc, right? What do you want it to be? I think if you started it over again, you'd say, we have this character, he's a college kid. He is going on this road trip because he spent all of college doing nothing fun, just studying, and he never felt like he got a good experience. He felt like he was always taking the safe route, so he wanted to do something sort of spontaneous and sort of push himself out of his comfort zone. He's going on this trip. He realizes that he's terribly prepared. He doesn't know what he's doing because it was more of a spur-of-the-moment thing anyway. He gets to this gas station. It's a normal-looking gas station from the outside. He goes inside and he sees that some stuff has been knocked over. Obviously, there was some sort of altercation that took place here. Nobody else is on the inside, and he's hearing banging sounds coming from the back. And since he's already in this mindset, normally he would never go and try and investigate or something like that. But he's trying to be the type of person who would. He's trying to be more out there, more spontaneous, erring less on the safe side and actually kind of being brave. So he decides to go ahead and peek in to see what's going on, and he sees this monster. From here, you could do it two ways. Either he involuntarily screams or something like that, like a normal person might if they saw something that horrific, and then the monster starts to chase him, and then the monster is chasing him on the way back. Maybe it's actually like on his car and he can't shake it. I think that the actual chase probably needs to be slower. And you just cut the hole like he dozes off at the end, but the monster's still there. It's like, because that whole post leaving the gas station scene we have here, I think just really doesn't work. Or you can have him sneak away, get out safely, but then we have this moral conundrum where he's like, I can't just leave this guy behind. I can't just do whatever. And maybe he's got no cell signal. Maybe we get kind of an idea of where we're at on the map and there's just nothing else around. We know that the nearest town is like 200 miles away, something like that. And so he goes inside and tries to help. And maybe he damages the monster or something like that. So the monster actually has a reason to pursue him for this long. And then you could say, oh yeah, he gets in his car, drives away. He tries to make it to the nearest town, but he doesn't quite make it. And he decides to sleep it off or whatever. Maybe he gets injured during the fight and he needs this, then, like sleeping it off makes more sense where his body just can't take being awake anymore. And then as he dozes off, the monster's still there. I think that would fix most of the problems that we have here, because right now, one, everything is nondescript. We don't know anything about anything. About what's the gas station look like? What's the surroundings look like? What does he look like? Is he intimidating? Is he imposing? Is he small, frail, and weak? We don't know anything at all. And Cooper behaves very much like not a real person, very unrealistically, and very cliche, like tripping and stuff like that. And our monster behaves very unrealistically also, again, with this weird pursuit and fixation on Cooper after he leaves. The overall structure and type of story that we're setting up here isn't bad. I wouldn't even say that this story is bad. It's definitely not good, though. I would probably have to give this like a 4.
No, not good. Never good.
Or a 5. Five might be a little bit too generous of saying that it's just like meh, middle of the road. Because middle of the road, I think, like, doesn't do anything egregiously bad or good. And this one, I guess, doesn't do anything egregiously bad. But I think there are definite setups and like key things we need to do to make an actual character and narrative that aren't really done right here. So it's definitely lacking in that regard. But there is definitely some potential here. This person has written other stories. I think it says at the bottom that they've had 9 submissions. So maybe we can check them out and see what else they have to offer, or just some other people in general. But let me know what you guys think of this review and of this story itself. And I will see you in the next one.